Welcome back to Rewind of the Living Dead. I'm Damon Martin.
Damon, we're talking about a silent movie today. I'm not going to say anything, Damon. I can't say nothing. We don't say words in Azrael.
Okay, so just a little inside baseball here. We don't discuss our intro. I write the intro part and then we come on. So when I say stupid things like I'm Damon whatever, that's just right off the cuff. I'm not even kidding. I was going to come on at the end of the intro and just not say anything to see if you'd pick up on it, but I was like, this is going to be weird because the audio people are going to be like, is our podcast broken? Like, what's going on?
Your podcast is not broken. I was being a smartass. I am Patrick Guerra, and welcome to Rewind of the Living Dead.
You stole my idea. Damn, we had the same exact idea. I was about to do it, and I was like, hold on now. I actually introed the show. If I don't say anything, people are going to be like, what's going on here?
We are at this point one brain, two bodies, for sure, at this really point.
Yes, Patrick, this week we are reviewing a very interesting new horror film starring the great Samara Weaving called Azrael.
Yes, Azrael, released in September of 2024, starring Katharina Unt as Josephine, Vic Carmen's son as Miriam, and of course, Damon, the great Samara Weaving, as you mentioned, who plays the titular Azrael. Damon, I think this year is proving something very clear. It's time for big swings. Like especially in the genre of horror, we've kind of seen it all. We've kind of done it all. We've seen quite a few big swings this year. Azrael, I'm going to say right now, I don't think is the biggest swing of the year, but it is a unique swing, Damon.
Very unique swing because this is a film that it runs about 85 minutes, so a little less than 90 minutes, and there is not a single line of dialogue. Now, for people say, oh, that's a massive spoiler, it's not a massive spoiler. You can know that going in, it doesn't do anything. There's no dialogue in this movie, and I was infinitely curious how that would play out, because if there's one thing we know about me on this podcast, Patrick, two of my all-time favorite filmmakers are Quentin Tarantino and Kevin Smith. Those two guys, if they do nothing else well, they do dialogue well. And so I'm a dialogue guy. I love dialogue. I quote movies all day. So I was really curious how this was going to play out. What got me interested, though, what kind of got me over the hump of like this kind of really odd way of telling a story, two pieces. One, I adore Samara Weaving. I will watch her do anything. I think she's incredible. She's one of my favorite actors in Hollywood, not even just horror, just in general. Yeah. And then when I heard Simon Barrett was doing this, because you and I gave a glowing review to Your Next, and we've never reviewed The Guest because it's not really a horror film. It's more of an action film, but Micah Monroe's in that movie, of course, and it's got a great cast, of course. And I know people kind of try to sell it's a horror movie. It's not a horror movie, but it's made by Adam Wingard. I really enjoyed that movie. I thought it was a really, really fun movie. He also did some of those Godzilla and Kong movies, which I've not really seen. I'm not a big guy on those.
My kids love those movies. Yeah.
I did see the Blair Witch movie. Everyone said it was good. I'm sorry, it wasn't. I like the original, but the whatever sequel, whatever you want to call it, it didn't really do it for me. But Your Next and The Guest were good enough where I was like, ooh, okay, I liked the writing in those films. So I was like, okay, I'm in. At the time, I had no idea there was no dialogue. I just heard it was a new horror film starring Samara Weaving and Simon Barrett was the writer. So I was intrigued, but then the buzz started growing, and then I heard about the no dialogue, and I was like, okay, well, you know what? As you said, it's the year of big swings, and if I had a complaint about, we've been doing this podcast, we've been doing year-end podcasts for 4 years now, so we've been doing quite a while. There have been a couple times where you and I have, I won't say struggled to get 5 films, but it wasn't the deepest list of 5 films.
Right.
We do 5. This year, I'm not going to say for the first time ever, I'm just saying like this year, I probably will struggle to cut my list to 5. And I think a big part of that is that there have been so many really original films this year. It's not, and by the way, to be clear, you know me, I love Scream. Scream's my second favorite franchise behind Nightmare on Elm Street. When Scream 7 comes out, if it's, good, it'll probably be on my list because I'm a massive Scream. Scream 6 was on my list, last year or 2 years ago when it came out. 2 years ago. But this year there hasn't been that. There hasn't really been the franchise films outside of A Quiet Place, which was a surprise.
Alien Romulus too.
Alien Romulus 2, there's another one. And I'm talking about like straight up horror franchises.
Yeah, clean horror. Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah, a lot of original films. So again, I agree, big swings and totally original ideas.
Especially, and I did forget to mention, yes, that this is written by Simon Barrett and directed by E.L. Katz, who I didn't know, but what I know now is E.L. Katz is 2 days older than me. Like, we're literally born the same week. But yeah, Simon Barrett is kind of, you're very right about this. Simon Barrett and that whole crew, Adam Wingard and all those guys, they're known for talky movies. Their movies are about yapping. Like, they really are. Like, they're kind of, you go to a Kevin Williamson movie for the dialogue and the drama of 20-something-year-olds. Like, that's what you go to that for. Simon Barrett movies, Quentin Tarantino movies, you go for the talking, you go for the dialogue. Kevin Smith, you mentioned as well. We'll talk about Kevin here in a moment. I'm glad that Simon Barrett was like, this is my challenge for myself. I'm known for, I don't know if he said this out loud, I'm known for witty dialogue. I'm known for snappy dialogue, whatever. What if I don't lean on that? I dig that. Going out of your comfort zone. Now, Damon, you, unlike a lot of people out there, are privy to my actual creative work. You get to see my scripts ahead of time. I send them over to the great Damon Martin because I respect his opinion. The last film I made and directed had about 6 lines of dialogue. The next one has 0 lines of dialogue. I'm not a dialogue guy. I really am not. I'm an image guy. I'm big into images. And I knew going in, the one thing I knew about Azrael, I didn't even watch a trailer. I just knew it was Samara weaving, and I knew it was no dialogue. And now I know it's written by Simon Barrett. I really appreciate that Simon says, I'm going to challenge myself to make a movie and not lean on that stuff and see how it goes. My opinion of Azrael, like before we really get into it, is that it was kind of a mixed bag, but it's still the kind of movie I rock with, because I'm like we talked about you and I off the air talked about the first episode of The Bear this season. No dialogue, all imagery. Loved it. Azrael, all imagery. Loved the imagery. Loved the ability to tell the story with the visuals alone. No, there's not even a person like scrawling something on a wall so you could read what they say. Like, not even that. It's like, how do my actions move the story forward? Now, that's a very unique challenge. It's not new. It's not completely novel. There's been a couple of movies like that. Robert Redford had like a movie where he was lost at sea. I think it was called Lost. I can't remember what it was called, but where he's lost at sea and there's no dialogue. And then last year there was a little horror breakout on Hulu called No One Will Save You. Or no, I think it was called No One Will Save You. A UFO movie.
Yeah, Caitlin Dever, I believe, is who is the star of that one.
Yeah. So, yeah, and I kind of liked it. Like, I was like, hey, this movie's okay. Like, not a bad movie at all. And so we've seen this swing before, but for a swing like that to come from a writer who is just literally known for their dialogue is cool to see.
I agree wholeheartedly. And let me say, again, not to bury the lead of what we're going to be talking about in our full review, I didn't love this movie. I liked it. I'll say that.
Yeah.
And I don't want to, this is not a backhanded compliment, by the way. When I said I didn't love it, I liked it. I did like it. But I think what made me like it more was because it was a big swing and it was so original for this. I appreciate when people do something different, because we get so mired in the remakes, the reboots, well, people like this, so let's just do it again kind of thing. And in horror, even where I actually think there's more original voices in horror than a lot of other genres, because you have, a lot of people just put out movies on YouTube or, TikTok to do shorts or whatever. And people take more risks because they're not banking on a $1 billion franchise like Deadpool. You're not living with that kind of IP, that kind of intellectual property. So people just take big swings and try something out, try something different. So horror is kind of built on that originality. But even that in recent years, and by the way, again, these are films that I've liked, but we've gotten 19 Halloween films. We're going to get 19 more. We're going to get Scream 7. We're probably going to have Scream 19 at some point. We're going to get, we're going to get the new Friday. They're doing a Crystal Lake TV series. How the hell are you going to do a TV series that has nothing to do with Jason? I'm still infinitely curious about it, but they're doing it. I just put up a story on RewindTheLivingDead.com yesterday about they're doing a RoboCop TV series. Now, I think that's actually kind of a cool idea because the original RoboCop is awesome. I think that's actually an idea that works really well. But my point is, to take existing IP and recreate and rework and redo around it, that's just standard fare in Hollywood. So Azrael wasn't amazing. It wasn't the kind of film where at the end of the year I'd be like, oh, that's definitely going to be on my top 5 list. But what I enjoyed about it was because it was so wildly original and so something I had never really seen done like this in horror. Now, I know you mentioned No One Will Save You, which, yes, there is no dialogue in that movie, but it's an alien invasion story set into modern time, set in our era of 2024, 2023, whatever. This is a movie that takes place in a dystopian future where, they put up, there are graphs of like dialogue of like almost like Bible-ish verses, like religious verses. They're done like 3 or 4 times, almost like the chapters of the story. But again, there's no dialogue. And what I liked about this, that I would say probably about 90% of the movie, and we'll talk about the 10% later, but about 90% of the movie, I didn't need the dialogue. It made total sense. Everything was really easy to follow. You figure it out pretty quickly what's going on here, what's happening to Samara Weaving's character, what she's involved in. And they set it up right at the very beginning. It says, you're dealing with a dystopian future where there's like certain sects of people who have basically taken a vow of silence. Okay, you don't need to know anything more than that. But the story is fairly easy to follow for 90% of the movie, and we'll talk about that 10% later. But the beats and the action and the way the story develops and unravels throughout the movie, I got it all, and I appreciated that it was something different. It wasn't. This could have easily been the same movie with a million lines of dialogue. I'm not saying it would have been better or worse, but I've seen versions of that movie. I've not seen this movie. I've not seen Azrael done the way Azrael is done.
And you and I, and probably every horror fan listening, is no stranger to post-apocalyptic movies and TV. You and I both love The Road, the book and the movie. Well, you know what I love about The Road? They don't tell you what happened. I know people who hate The Road because they don't tell you what happened. This movie doesn't tell you what happened. They just set you in a post-apocalyptic world. I also like that with the challenge of no dialogue, I, as the audience member, am even more in the dark than I typically am when I start a movie. Now, you know me, I love being in the dark. That's like, that's my baseline. I need to start knowing very little. I saw no trailer going into this. I didn't know what I was in for. I didn't know anything about the visuals of this movie. I saw a poster and I heard a couple of horror content creators talk about it and they said it was good. So when I get dropped into this movie and they give me the bare minimum to get the wheels going, I like being in the unknown. I think, and I want more people to embrace that. I was actually talking with a writer on Twitter that I admire, and she was talking about Michael B. Jordan's new thriller horror is coming out with Ryan Coogler. And it's the trailer doesn't tell you anything. And she was talking about people getting mad because it didn't tell you anything. And I chimed in and I was just like, I love that I don't know anything. It's some scary shit. Sign me up. That's all I give a shit about. So being in the dark as an audience member is fun. Like, and I know this happens to you too, Damon. It happens. My wife does it to me all the time. Sometimes on purpose. She'll go, "What's happening? Who's that? What are they doing?" And I'm like, I'm also watching this for the first time too, right? Like I actually don't know anything. So I'm sure there's a lot of audience members that are like, no, I go to Wikipedia and like read everything I can about the movie before we start. I want to know as much as possible. I'm the opposite. I like knowing as little as possible. So without any dialogue to help me, I was like, cool, this is an even bigger challenge because one of the biggest, I think, missteps, and a lot of movies, not just horror, a lot of movies fall into this trap. They use dialogue to to move the plot along. They expose the dialogue. Oh, Damon, how was your day today? I've had better days. Today my boss fired me and my wife left me. Like it's weird, like expository dialogue. It happens all the time. Sometimes, this about me, Damon. I don't like self-aware humor, which a Simon Barrett could be accused of from time to time, like knowing you're in a movie. Like some writers want to inject that into a movie. Taking the dialogue away, it allowed the images to kind of tell the story. I'm getting tongue tied because I don't want to say certain things about the movie, but I just love the fact that I was on this ride and I had even less control than I normally have. Some of you are going to be like, ooh, I don't like that. Cool, that's your thing. I really like just being like, whoa, I don't know what direction I'm being pulled in.
Yeah, and like I said, I appreciate that this film doesn't really. Again, I didn't even know that going in. I may have seen the trailer, but I don't remember if I did. It certainly, and again, with no dialogue, how much could you really learn? Because you're just
Right.
seeing flashes of images, and maybe I saw Samara Weaving running at some point. Maybe that was the trailer. I can't really remember, to be honest with
Works
you.
for me.
Yeah, sure, whatever. But like I said, when the movie started, again, like I knew there was no dialogue, and I kind of knew the premise. It was in a dystopian future. I didn't know anything else beyond that. That's all I knew. I knew it took place in a post-apocalyptic world, as you said. That's not an uncommon theme in horror, and I knew it had Samara Weaving, and I knew there was no dialogue. But I didn't know anything beyond that. So I was like, I don't know, what is this? And it took me 2 minutes to figure out what was going on. And there's little beats along the way that you have to kind of figure out where they're going and what's happening and some of the different characters involved here. But again, it's they do it in such a way that it all makes sense for the most part. There's a couple things that are a little confusing or a little at the end where you're kind of like, am I right in what I saw? Am I right in what I'm thinking? But even that, I know this is going to piss off a lot of people when I say this, Patrick, especially come from me, the non-art house goon half of this podcast.
Yeah, right.
But sometimes when things are a little left up to interpretation, not like Men, which was a whole other animal, but like this movie.
Yeah, I knew it was coming up.
This movie has a couple of moments where you might be like, I'm not 100% sure what they're doing or why they're doing this, but it's done in such a way that it's almost like choose your own adventure. Remember those books when you were a kid where you could say, turn to page, 32 if you wanted to turn left, turn to page 68 if you want to turn right. And it would always, the choose your adventures, you choose your own story. And then by the end, you'd have a different story than the friend sitting next to you because you chose different paths during the book. I loved those when I was a kid. I think what this movie does differently, this is not like left up to interpretation of like the weird, bizarre, dumb shit that I hate, like in Men. This is a movie where it's just little things where you're like, I think it could be that, but maybe it's that. And we actually had a discussion before this podcast started about a particular part of the movie, and you're like, I think it's this. I was like, I think it's this. And then when we got done talking, and again, this isn't spoilers. People are like, stop doing the circling language here, dude. When I got done, you were kind of like, you know what? I think I kind of like your version a little better. But we had different interpretations. It wasn't wrong. That's my point. Neither one of us were wrong. We just had a different interpretation of what we thought we saw, and I kind of appreciated that we were able to both see it, enjoy it, have a slightly different take on it, and then we got together and discussed it, and we're like, oh yeah, that's kind of cool. So this isn't like a guy who I love. This isn't a David Lynch film when you're done where I'm like, the fuck. Okay, like cool. It just had cool images, and had people screaming. Kyle MacLachlan showed up nude some point. Like, all right, whatever. That's David Lynch films. This is not that. And to your point, you mentioned that movie No One Will Save You. That was a movie that I'd heard all the buzz about, that it was coming on Hulu. I knew it was an alien invasion movie, but I didn't know much else. I didn't know going into that there was no dialogue. I was like 20 minutes in, and I was like, have they spoken a line in this movie?
Right, yeah.
So that was a little different where I was kind of waiting. I was like, are they going to talk? And then, like 25, 30 minutes in, I was like, they're not going to talk in this movie. And so it was a little weirder for me because I had no idea that was happening. In this one I did. So I was a little more astute. Now, and I know you say you like going in as cold as possible. I'm like one step below you. But I will say this. I think if I was going to give our audience one piece of advice, and by this point it's too late because I've already said it, but I'm just saying it again. If you know going in there's no dialogue, as I said, doesn't spoil anything,
No.
but you will be a little bit more astute in how you're paying attention to the visuals. I think you'll actually enjoy this movie a little bit more. Because I think that's one thing that threw me off about No One Will Save You, because I didn't know that going in. I was like, they haven't talked, and we're like 30 minutes into this thing. And then at that point, my brain had to switch. Because I was like, oh shit, she hasn't said a word this entire movie. This time I knew it going in. I think it actually made it a little, I won't say easier to follow. It just made me more astute to like what I was watching, if that makes sense.
It does, and then also, with no one will save you. Um, it deals with like very classic alien tropes, like classic little gray men, flying saucers. Like it deals with stuff that we're actually really really familiar with. So even though there's no dialogue, like you're pretty well oriented because you're like, well, I know all this mythology, like I know all this sci-fi mythology, so I'm kind of following what's going on. This is all brand new mythology. Like even those little scripture notes, that he puts in for each of the little chapters, it's written for those people. You get the feeling that you're reading from one of their holy texts, something entirely their own. There's some things, some spoilery things that are world building things, and you're like, oh, cool. What's that even all about? I like that. I like it's the experience of discovery. So do I have problems with movies? Yeah, I do, but I also really just fucking appreciate the fact that I'm seeing like all new things on top of the fact that there's no dialogue.
Yeah. Before we get to categories, Patrick, I want to play a little clip from one of my favorite filmmakers. He did a guy by the name of Kevin Smith. By the way, I'm going to throw this out there for people because this is not a horror movie. Kevin Smith just recently released a new film called The 4:30 Movie. Have you seen it yet, Patrick?
No.
I saw it in the theater a couple weeks ago. I absolutely loved it. And this is not me speaking as like a Kevin Smith fanboy. There have been a couple Kevin Smith movies where I was like, it was all right. It was so cute, just like a really small, and it reminded me of my childhood of kids going to the movies on a Saturday afternoon because that was me as a kid going to a movie on a Saturday afternoon. And the cutest, like sweet little movie. I loved it. I would highly recommend going to see it if you're a Kevin Smith fan. It's very funny, but it's just a very sweet, cute movie. Anyways, Kevin Smith was on Theo Vaughn's podcast recently, and he was talking about the kind of changing culture of theaters, how theater, the theater business is struggling. It's been struggling ever since the pandemic. And he always talks about the currency, your own voice, acting as currency, like using your own voice to make your own stories. That doesn't necessarily mean you have to be creating your own intellectual property, but it just means putting your own voice into whatever you're creating. And he had a little segment I want to talk about, which was what we were mentioning earlier about taking big swings to being creative. And Kevin had this one thing he talked about in this video. I know we watched the whole video, but I'm going to play this little clip so you can understand what I'm talking about original ideas and how that's kind of catching hold in theaters now, very much of what we've spoken about this year.
But what if you tell them a story going back to your voice as your currency they've never heard before, and the only place they could see it is in theater, and right now theaters are hurting, so they'll fucking take anybody. It doesn't matter. It used to be tough to get screens. Now, are you fucking kidding me? You can make a deal with AMC, a private deal with your own independent movie where you're like, can I get 100 screens and we'll do a door split or whatever. It's possible because movie theaters, as a movie theater exhibitor, I know this for a fact, we would kill or die to have people come in. Imagine you're an indie filmmaker who wants to say the thing nobody has ever fucking said before in a film, per se. We're just using film as an example. Now is your time. Like, you could actually make a thing and have it be in a goddamn movie theater. And then if you do even the tiniest bit of business with your movie in a movie theater these days, that's a fucking story.
So let me just throw out a couple of examples, and I think you'll agree with me on this, Patrick. If this was pre-pandemic, do you think, I'm not talking about, like, I understand we're in the streaming era where a lot of stuff goes to streaming anyways, but do you think Terrifier 2, do you think In a Violent Nature, do you think Late Night with the Devil, do you think any of those movies would have had any level of success or even gotten into theaters outside of like the specialty theaters? Like we have a theater here in Columbus where I live. It's called Gateway Film Center down at Ohio State's campus. They get everything because it's Ohio State. It's a big, there's a huge community and they get like everything down there. It's a non-profit theater. So they just get everything down there, all the weird art movies, all the like every weird.
Yeah,
But
yeah, we got an art
so,
house cinema here in San Diego too.
yeah, so I'm like the regular AMC. Do you think we would have seen any of those movies getting attraction a decade ago?
No, hell no. The movies that I've seen over in the pandemic years in the theater has it's been incredible. It really has because let's face it, like streaming sucked the life. And funny, and I found another clip from Kevin from that same interview with Theo Vaughn where he says, like streaming is basically the studios now. Like think of streaming as Warner Brothers or Sony or any of the big other names. Like it's not like a win to get on Netflix. It's the big time. That's the big business stuff. If you're an indie filmmaker and horror is steeped in indie film, and I listen to Kevin Smith talk and I go, well, geez, I was raised on Kevin Smith. I fucking sound like the guy. Like literally, like I say the same kind of shit he says. I'm realizing that. Um, the fact all those movies that you just rifled off, those would have been pre-pandemic something that got buried on Netflix, something that got buried on Hulu, something that would have not had a box office number. And that was a problem for a while. That was actually like killing the business. What was killing the business was that a lot of interesting films were just getting lost on streaming. And what he says in this interview, as it continues, is that actually giving movies a little bit of a theatrical run puts some novelty on them, and then all of a sudden they have a bigger life on streaming, a much bigger life. And then they have value to streamers because they're like, oh shit, Terrifier 2 did 10 million. Well, we need the exclusive rights to stream it on streaming. Like somebody like jockeyed for that. Believe me, somebody's jockeying right now for Terrifier 3 to be officially streamed at that place. If it's going to be Shudder, hey Shudder, or if it's going to be, it might be Netflix. Netflix might be like, we're the home of Terrifier 3. Can you imagine that? Like, and would that have happened pre-pandemic? Absolutely fucking not. Terrifier 3 would have been, your DVD bin, your bargain bin. And I'm not dissing the film. I'm just saying like it would live on the way like Hatchet. Hatchet kind of just lived where Hatchet lived. It's if you knew about it, you knew about it. That's what Terrifier would have been. But now Terrifier is something else. And now Late Night with the Devil is something else. And the people surrounding those movies, they're actually being brought up because the theaters desperately need butts and seats. And they're finding that they're making event films. That's exciting to a filmmaker like me, like a guy who's out here trying to ply his trade as a filmmaker, while basically every professional that's been in the business for 20 years is going, it's a dying medium. It's not, and it's still very much a real medium. And in a big way, horror is saving this medium. Horror is showing, the box office for horror is doing fantastic. That's why this whole year is just littered with horror films. It's great for business. And you mentioned it earlier, it's a great place for creatives to stretch their muscles and take their chances. I love that. And I've said it multiple times on this podcast. What's cool about horror is it fits many genres. You can be a horror comedy, a horror sci-fi, you can be a horror drama, you can be a horror thriller, you can be a lot of things. You can't be a thriller comedy anymore. Like they don't let thriller comedies happen. Dramedies don't happen as often as they before. You have to choose, are you a rom-com or are you a drama? You cannot be a drama D. You have to, now you have to go over here into this little box. There's all these little boxes, but horror time and time again proves it's the most flexible, most creative of all the genres in cinema.
It really is. And I that clip that it's on TikTok, but it's on Theo Vaughn's podcast. You can listen to the whole interview with Kevin Smith. I cut it because I would have just played the whole 5-minute clip, but I didn't want to do that. But right after that segment I cut off, what exactly you're talking about, he talked about the Ben Affleck movie Air. The movie about making the first pair of Air Jordans, which I saw in the theater. I enjoyed that movie. I had a blast with that movie. Matt Damon, Ben Affleck. It was a really fun movie about the creation of the Air Jordan at Nike and how that became the entire Nike identity was making the Air Jordan shoe. It was a really fascinating movie and a lot of stuff I didn't know about. But he talked about Amazon, which is, they got all the money in the world. They were going to do it streaming. They said, you know what? Let's put a little bit of marketing muscle behind this. Let's put it out in the theaters and see how it does. They did. It did pretty well. And then they put it on Amazon and they realized it got even more viewership because the people who didn't see it in theaters heard the buzz and they wanted to go see it on theater. The same thing happened with Late Night with the Devil. That movie opened. It played for like a weekend. And it made $666,000, the very perfect number for Late Night with the Devil. But people are like, oh, this movie made money on like a no budget and like no marketing. People just heard about Late Night with the Devil and it made that money. Now, again, to the Deadpools and Wolverines, yeah, $666,000 is like what you find your couch cushion. But for a movie that cost 70, what did Late Night with the Devil cost to make? 100 grand, 150 grand, something like that. So it was very cheap.
No, it cost about $4 million.
Was it that much?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Somewhere between 2 and 4 mil.
Well, to get that kind of money on a weekend of opening for a theater for a movie that didn't expect to do anything in a theater, and they actually
didn't have an advertising budget, by the way.
Yeah. And they re-released in the theaters, and then when it went to streaming, it blew up. And now, I just noticed like this week or last week, they released In a Violent Nature. Same kind of thing. It wasn't Deadpool Wolverine. I keep using Deadpool Wolverine as an example because it's the biggest movie of the year. It's not that, but it did enough. It got enough buzz, and shows like ours are reviewing it. Now it's on Shudder. And guess what? A whole lot of people are like, I didn't see that in the theater. I want to see it now that it's on Shudder. They're realizing it is a model that works, putting something in theaters, even if it's for a brief period of time, to get people talking. And then 3 months later, 6 weeks later, 8 weeks later, you put it on streaming, people come over to watch it on streaming as well. So they're finding out this actually works. And going all the way back full circle to Azrael 1000% is a movie that just would have gone on Netflix or Shudder or Hulu or whatever. The fact that it's in a theater, and I don't know that it's going to make a ton of money. It probably won't because it's a very niche movie. But we're talking about it. There's going to be other horror creators talking about it. There's going to be reviews on Hollywood Reporter and Variety and Entertainment Weekly and all the websites because theater releases get reviews. Not every Netflix, Hulu movie gets a review. It's a theater movie, so it's going to get a review. People are going to be like, ooh, what is this? It's a horror movie with Samara Weaving. I didn't hear about this. Blah, blah, blah. Oh, it's going to be a Shudder movie. It's going to go on Shudder eventually. I don't know when, but sometime probably later this year. Those people, maybe they didn't pay their $14, $15 to go see it in the theater this weekend, but when it drops on Shudder November, December, they're going to remember, oh, yeah, that Azrael movie, I didn't get to see it in the theater. Let me go watch it on Shudder. So it's working in tandem, and I think to Kevin Smith's point, the larger point I'm making here is that original ideas, theaters are clamoring for that because that's what people are into. There's a reason why the comic book companies, the Marvels, the DCs, all the big, they were panicking because for a little while there, the comic book movies weren't making what they weren't. You could dump a Marvel movie and say, here it is. It's called Super Shit. We're not going to tell you what it is. It's just a big pile of shit with a cape on it, and it's from Marvel. And it would make $130 million opening weekend because people were so enamored with Marvel. They're like, I don't care what it is. I don't care. It's whatever. It's Marvel. I'm going to go see Super Shit in the theater. Pandemic happened. People stopped wanting to go to theaters. People were scared to go to theaters. Whatever the case may be. Then they put out, Captain Marvel, the sequel, whatever it was, the Marvels. And nobody went and saw it. For a Marvel movie, it bombed. It made over $100 million, but for a Marvel movie, it was a bomb. And, other movies like that happen, where they're like, oh my God, they're not big. So they panicked. They're like, oh shit, we got to bring back Robert Downey Jr. right away. Get him back in there and play Dr. Doom. Because they're just accustomed to putting anything on screen and people running to go see it. And people are getting more savvy about what they're going to spend their money on.
Yeah.
And people are willing, again, $666,000 for Late Night with the Devil doesn't sound like a lot of money. But when you have a movie that, okay, even if it's $4 million, that's still nothing in the grand scheme of things as far as what a movie costs to make. That's minute compared to most movies. No marketing budget. You and I love David Dastmalchian, but that's not an A-list. That's not a name.
Yeah, he's not a draw. Yeah.
Yeah. He's not Brad Pitt, George Clooney. You just put his name on there. People come to see it because it's Brad Pitt or George Clooney. No A-list stars, no A-list director, no big studio behind it, no marketing budget. Opening weekend, it goes to theaters for one weekend and makes almost, closer to $1 million when it was all said and done. Now, again, that doesn't sound like a lot compared to $100 million
I actually,
that some of the
and I
Marvel.
actually, and I do think that it actually allowed for it to have an extended run at the theaters. It
It
was
did,
gonna
yeah.
just have a 1 week run, and they were like, "Oh, it's actually doing well." And I think it ended up running for a couple months.
Yeah, and so again, by Marvel standards, it's not making that kind of money. But for a movie theater that's trying to get people to come and see movies in the theater, like holy shit, people are interested in this because it's original, it's different. People have not seen this before, and people are willing to pay their money to go see it because it's not super shit because they're not just some random Marvel movie. So the point is like this is such an amazing time to be an original creator, whether you're horror or not. Like you and I just we slather all over Strange Darling earlier this year. That was a totally original film, different than what we'd ever seen before. Really creative, really different take on a thriller / horror, however you want to define it. I don't know what the box office did in that movie. I have no idea, but that movie got buzz. Why did it get buzz? Because it was different. It was original. It was something that everybody who reviewed it, even the people who were like, I didn't love it, but I liked it, they said, what I liked about it is I had not seen something like this before. It was really creative. Those 2 words, really creative. That's a buzzword for me. That's like, ooh, okay, I want to say really original, however you want to say it. That's the world we're living in right now. Now, I don't know how long it's going to last. It may not last for 5 years. It may last for another year. I have no idea. But at this time and place, just like Azrael is doing in theaters, this is a very special time to be an original creator for horror or for any other genre.
Get out there, make the thing you want to make, and don't look for help from a studio. They're not clamoring to buy your thing. You go make it on your own and find a home for it. So a lot of people just put movies on YouTube and those get seen. That happens all the time. People are talking about Milk and Cereal, the found footage film some people just put their movie up on YouTube. Go make your creative thing. Go put it out. Don't wait. Mark Duplass, the very famous indie filmmaker and the who does the Creep movies, and he has the Creep TV show coming to Shudder, I believe. He said it very famously: "The cavalry's not coming. If you're looking for backup, stop looking. Go make your thing. Go make your weird thing. Go make your thing with no dialogue. Go make your thing where you don't see anyone's face for the first half of the movie." By the way, you think I'm exaggerating? Zone of Interest, you pretty much see people's backs the whole movie, almost the whole movie. Like really, like you don't often see people's faces, and if you do, they're like 20 feet away from the camera. Very rare. Very weird movie, which by the way won Oscars. Okay, weird movies fucking work. They really do. Stay weird, folks. Please.
And stay original. And you talk about the studios. Did you see the story this week? I don't want to get too off track here. Studio involvement can get scary. Did you see the story this week about Strange Darling?
Yes, I did.
2 days into filming, Miramax, who is funding Strange Darling, said, "Yeah, we don't like Willa Fitzgerald. We got to replace her." And JT Mulner's like, "The fuck? Huh? No.
Yeah.
We're not replacing." And I saw that story and my eyes nearly popped out of my head. I know you saw it because I saw it on Twitter when I responded to the story. I think it's over on Bloody Disgusting. I was like, I'm not kidding. And I said, I pounded the desk. I'll do it all year going into next year. Willa Fitzgerald should get an Oscar nomination for that fucking movie. And you were going to replace her 2 days in? Holy shit.
Yeah.
That's terrifying to me. Like, you want to replace the fucking Oscar-nominated actress, the one I think should be in for awards? That's who you want to replace? So yeah, like even that, like even though Strange Darling ended up being an incredible movie, and credit to JT Mulner for basically saying, no, fuck you, you're not replacing Willa Fitzgerald. Even that, like, be original, man. Go make your YouTube movie, because you may think in your head, like, man, I need Disney. I need this. I need to sell it to fucking Hulu. I need to sell it to Sony. Sony may come in and say, yeah, you're not going to do this. Or, Kevin Smith's a great example. When he wanted to make Mallrats, which I know did not do well in the theater, but ended up becoming a cult classic, he took it to Universal, or I think it was Universal, and they're like, yeah, we want to cast all the kids from 90210 and like all the hot teens at the time. And he's like, I don't want to make that. I want to make the movie with, Jason Mewes and with, Jeremy London and the guys I want to make it with. And they're like, yeah, we're not giving you money, but we'll give you $2 million for that. And he's like, fuck it, I'll take $2 million and go make my movie.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Like, studios, when they get involved, like, you think it's a great thing, but, I wonder, like, even that you hear all the time, directors leave a project over creative differences. That always means they want to do one thing, the studio wanted to do the other, and who has the power? The studio has the power. They're like, all right, fuck off and die. We're going to hire the next guy to do the movie the way we want to do it. That's how it works.
That is how it works.
Patrick, let's get into a couple categories before we get into spoilers. And we're not really going to, when I say best performance, okay, yes, this is best performance.
From the prime time, bitch!
But to be fair, there's only one performance we can talk about here because really there's only one lead role. And I want you to preface this category because you mentioned it in our categories. Best performance, of course, is none other than Samara Weaving.
Yes. This is an interesting movie because really it is a movie where Samara's character, Azrael, basically is the character in the movie. There are there are characters that she interacts with. There's even characters that I would argue do have kind of a significant piece in the movie, but it's a tight 90 minutes or just under 90 minutes, and you're really just following Samara through this, harrowing ordeal. That's not an easy task, and really it's a coup for E.L. Katz and Simon Bear to get someone like Samara, who's very magnetic, very in command. You know what I mean? She does a lot of like actiony type roles. She's a physical actor. She's the kind of the perfect person to cast for a role like this, where it's like, I need you to do it with your body and your eyes. And that is exactly Samara Weaving. She can do all of those things. By the way, she's great with dialogue. She's fun with dialogue. She's known to be kind of witty and quippy herself, but she was able to carry this whole movie fully on her back, Damon, with no one there to help her out. Actors like to play off the other character very often. And imagine it's just like, okay, you're going to do this thing right now, and no one's going to say nothing. And you're like, wow, okay, I hope that other actor gives me really good face, because if not, I'm going to be screwed.
Yeah, I mean, Samara Weaving is incredibly talented, but this takes a whole other level of talent. And I guarantee you, just like I mentioned on the show before, there are actors who will flat out not do horror, not do comedy, because they just can't get it right. They very openly, you can look up interviews, and there are actors, award-winning actors, who will say, I don't do comedy because I just don't have the timing. Comedy is all about timing. Horror is all about reaction. Some people say, I just can't do reaction right. I can do drama, I can win Oscars, but I just can't do scared the right way. I can't react the right way for a horror film. To do this without any speaking whatsoever, to do everything through facial expressions, through physical reaction, that takes talent. And Samara Weaving proved in this film that this is something she can do. And I don't know there's a lot of people in Hollywood, period, who could have done it. So credit to her. You mentioned single, focused movies. I was trying to think of other examples of like movies that are only focused on a single character, like not like this. This is again very original type, And you mentioned No One Will Save You is probably one of the better examples with Caitlin Dever. What can you think of any other? I was trying to think of some like other like single focus movies.
I haven't seen it, but have you seen Locke with Tom Hardy?
I have the prison movie. Is that the one you're talking about?
No, I'm talking about the one where he's in a car the entire movie on the phone, and it's literally the entire movie is just him on the phone in the car. There's nothing else.
Okay, no, I've never seen that one.
And then I want to say there's also like is it a Michael Bay one where it's like the guy's in a phone booth? Oh, there's phone booth is I think the name of the movie, where the guy's in the phone booth the whole time. Colin Farrell.
Yeah. And he's talking to Kiefer Sutherland on the phone the entire movie.
Right. I mean, they're out there.
And actually, you know what? I actually really like that movie. Phone Booth is actually a pretty good movie. I enjoyed that movie. That was actually one of the other examples I had was Phone Booth. It's not easy to do when you got to carry the weight of the whole movie. I mean, and again, to be fair, like most movies aren't written that way. I've said this before, like as good as, anybody is in a movie, and I'll use like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood as an example. Like Brad Pitt won an Oscar for Best Supporting Actor. He was incredible in that movie, but you don't get that performance if you don't have Margaret Qualley to play off of, if you don't have Leonardo DiCaprio to play off of, if you don't have all these other characters to play off of. That's how you get that kind of performance. And that's typical. That's every movie. That's why when people win awards, the first thing they do is they either thank the writer, the director, or their co-stars, because they don't get there without that. Like when Christoph Waltz won the Oscar 2 times working with Tarantino, first thing he did was like, thank you for creating this character, Quentin, because he doesn't get there if Quentin doesn't write this for him. And then, he goes on and thanks, he thanks Jamie Foxx or whoever he had to play off of for the majority of the movie. Samara Weaving, while again, to be fair, there are other co-stars in this movie, this is pretty much all on her back.
Yeah, it is. It's no easy task, and she pulls it off.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's move on to our next category, and that is, of course, our MVP, and that is the Ken Foray Banana Hammock MVP Award, named after great character actor Ken Foray from the movie From Beyond, where he jumped down a flight of stairs and into a basement to kill a creature wearing nothing more than a Tom bikini, which is actually what Patrick's dressed in right now. It's kind of off-putting doing the podcast right now.
Got you.
If that's not an MVP performance, I don't know what is. So, Patrick, who gets your MVP for Azrael?
My MVP for Azrael is the cinematographer Mart Taniel. I wasn't familiar with Mart's work, but I really loved the look of this movie. It's a very dark movie. I'm always impressed when a cinematographer can use a movie that does not have a ton of light in it and still make it very interesting to look at. You don't feel like you're searching for what's happening in this movie. It's very beautifully shot, and in a movie with no dialogue, so much of it depends on the visuals, and a great cinematographer is going to help you achieve that.
Yeah, I thought the visuals were really great. And you're absolutely right about the darkness of this movie. I mean, there's a few scenes where there's fires lit and things like that, and that's really the only light you're getting in a scene, and yet nothing was ever like, what am I watching? What's going on here?
Right, you're not confused.
It wasn't Game of Thrones Long Night where I'm like, what the fuck is going on here? Why is it so dark?
I like that episode. I watched that episode on my laptop the first time because it was like I couldn't wait. Like it was one of the, I was on a job in like Portland or something, and I couldn't wait. So I was like, fuck it, I'm just gonna watch it on my laptop. It looked fine, and then it looked great when I watched it at home too.
But that's the classic one where everyone's like, it's too fucking dark.
That's where everybody complained about it being too dark. Yeah.
Yeah, and that whole last season was garbage, but that's neither here nor there.
Wrong, Damon. It was good.
Anyways, so yeah, no, it was, and I you're absolutely right with the cinematography. It was impressive, and I there are moments where I got a little worried. I was like, oh man, this is going to be really dark. Are they going to pull it off? And they do. Use shadows really well. The little bit of light you have, they do it. The reflections. There's enough in here where there was never a moment where I was like, huh, what's happening here? What can't I see? No, it was really well done. So, me, Patrick, with my MVP, when I like a movie, I kind of default to writer-director because that tends to be the creative force behind it. And yes, Mr. Predictable is falling back into patterns here. I am saying my MVP is Simon Barrett. And the reason I say that is not just because I did enjoy this movie. It wasn't, like I said, it's not great. It's not, the movie I'm going to be hammering the desk on at the end of the year saying, man, what an incredible achievement. But it was original. And what I liked about it, as you mentioned, this is a guy who is known for his witty, sarcastic dialogue. This is his thing. That's his bread and butter. To go so far away from that and still find a way to make a pretty good movie, that's talent. That's not easy. I remember watching, do you remember the show Dinner for Five, the John Favreau?
Oh yeah,
show?
Love that show.
If you never heard of Dinner for Five, go look them up. I think they're on YouTube. They might be on like Apple where you can buy the episodes. It was a show that John Favreau hosted back in the day where he would sit around a table with him and 4 celebrity guests, and they would share food and they would just tell stories. So like one time he would have there was always like 4 kind of diverse people. Like they weren't all friends. So he would tell some really cool stories. And there was an episode where he had David Milch on there, who was one of the most famous screenwriters in Hollywood history. He did Hill Street Blues, NYPD Blue, and he also did Deadwood, which is an incredibly well-written show. And John Favreau was talking about he had kind of gotten tired of writing the way he wrote, and when he was doing Elf, which is one of his biggest films, he's like, after Elf, he's like, I just want to do something different. So he wrote a Western, and he wrote it all in iambic pentameter, which is like a Shakespeare style of writing. I'm not going to sit here and explain what iambic pentameter. It's a certain style of rhythm in dialogue that you would write, like so many syllables per line in the way it's written. And he's like, I want to challenge myself to do something different. So I wrote the entire script in iambic pentameter. And I turned it in, and the studio's just like, yeah, this, scratch this, write this, change this. They don't give a shit. And
No,
he's just
they
like,
don't
yeah, he's like, it just ruined it for me because I wanted to do something special and different for me, and the studio didn't care. Simon Barrett challenged himself to do something different, and the studio didn't say, where's the dialogue, mother? He did it, and it worked out. And so, again, is this movie amazing? No. Is it pretty good? Yeah. And so a guy who, again, this would be like Quentin Tarantino or Kevin Smith writing a movie with no dialogue. That's not their foray.
Yeah, to not fall back on the things you're known for. I champion that. I mean, that's a filmmaker, a creative going, I want to take risks with what I am, right? Like he did the big Godzilla movies, the big Godzilla King Kong movies. Those aren't risks. I mean, that basically they're teeing themselves up to have $100 million weekend. They already know, they know this, and this happens. You can predict everything that's going to happen in the movie, and Godzilla's going to be all right at the end. Those weren't challenges for him. So he went and challenged himself. And he put together, I think, a pretty solid movie.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Patrick, I think it's time to get into spoilers. So if you haven't seen Azrael right now, it is out in theaters, just opened this past weekend. I know you and I say this every single time. Don't always judge by what we say. Go see it for yourself. But as we already talked about, unique films that are available in theaters, go check them out in theaters. So Azrael is a very interesting film. And this is one that's not me saying, go see it for yourself. This is me saying, I enjoyed it. Check it out. I think it's worth your time to see this in the theater. With that being said, now we are going to get into spoilers. And let's kick things off with our next category, which is our face huggables, where we feel good and warm inside, and the parts of the movie that just grab onto us like a face hugger in an alien movie to make us all feel all warm and fuzzy inside. Patrick, what did you like most about Azrael?
My face huggables, as I mentioned, first of all, great cinematography, great effects, like a lot of gore in this movie. I had a big gore list this time around. And cool, Damon, now that we're in spoilers, we can talk about this. Zombies. Okay, now you go, oh, it's a zombie apocalypse. Not really. It is like some sort of weird ritualistic thing. There's some ritualistic thing happening. But somewhere along the apocalypse, Damon, the dead or whatever, I don't know, I don't quite know, but at a certain point, many people became the burnt, and the burnt are just that. They are literally charred black, like they have been singed and risen from a pile of ashes and flame, and they are these zombies that are like lumbering around looking to eat flesh, and this religious cult is satiating them, keeping them at bay, keeping them out of their particular compound by sacrificing people. And Azrael is one of the people they intend to sacrifice to these zombies. But I loved the cool take on zombies this time around, where it was like they're almost all uniform. Where normally you typically want to see, oh, okay, here's the zombie with the bottom half of its body missing. Here's the bog zombie. I saw that in a movie recently, Caring for the Undead. There was a bog zombie in that one, and here's the grandma zombie. Here's the kid zombie. No, this is like they're all these charred, blackened, bloody mouthed, groany, weird, creepy zombies, and I like that. Again, something that just stood out. It's like, oh, I've seen zombie apocalypse before. You haven't seen it before like this.
It's funny. So in the credits, they actually list him as Burnt Man, is what they list him as. They say, tall burnt man, short burnt man. They're all just listed as Burnt Man. But you know what it reminded me of when I first saw it? This was going to be a funny comparison. Have you seen the original Blade from 1998? The one was Wesley Snipes?
Yeah.
Do you remember when he battles Stephen Dorff's right-hand man, henchman Quinn, played by a good friend of mine, by the way, Donald Logue, who is a buddy of mine. I think he's an incredible character actor. He plays Quinn. He has the braids. You know what I'm talking about? He's like the right-hand man.
I don't remember him in there, but yeah, I remember. Okay. I mean, I've definitely seen it.
Early in the movie, Blade sets him on fire and doesn't kill him, but he sets him on fire. And when Quinn wakes up in the hospital because he's a vampire, he doesn't die. He just wakes up later. He's just charred from head to toe. He's just burnt to a crisp. He's all blackened and looks like he's fallen into a charcoal grill. When I saw the burnt men in this movie, I was like, hey, they look like Donald Logue Blade. But they were really cool, and they were kind of cannibals. I mean, I guess that's zombie, but they were like bloodthirsty. They weren't necessarily, they were kind of like vampire-ish in a way.
Well, yeah, they would like chew on you, but then they would tear people apart because I mean, that goes to my best score, which we'll talk about in a minute. They did tear people apart. They were after flesh for sure.
Yeah, and blood, and they were just So, to your point, as far as the face huggables go, I mean, I know I don't want to beat on a drum here. I don't want to beat a dead horse, so to speak. But just what I loved about this film was the originality. I really did, because I've seen plenty of post-apocalyptic thrillers. I've seen plenty of zombie films. I've seen a lot of films that are similar-ish, that you could have gone down one road or another and said, "Oh yeah, I've seen this before." I hadn't really seen this before, and it's not just because there's no dialogue. They make it in enough way to where it's like, yeah, this is totally cool and totally original. Yes, there's religious zealots in this movie. I've seen that. There's a cult. I've seen that before. There's zombies. I've seen that before. I've seen elements of this movie before, but when you kind of combine them all, it's like putting in a stew pot and mixing it all together. I'd not really seen that before. So the creativity, the originality was first and foremost in my mind. Also, to go back to best performance and credit to the casting directors and to the director and, of course, Simon Barrett as well, because I know he's a pretty well-known screenwriter. Selecting Samara Weaving. I mean, this movie doesn't work without the right person in that role.
Damon, let me correct you. Begging Samara Weaving to be in your little indie film. That's more like it. You know, it's just going like that. I know this now, having helped produce a feature film recently. Some actors they don't audition for the role. They will take the offer or not. You know, it's like, I'm offering you the role as the lead in my movie. That's very likely what had happened with Samara Weaving, and she might know Simon Barrett. You know, he's a pretty well known guy in the industry. But I guarantee you, it was like, please, Samara, it will allow our movie to have much more visibility if you would just be in our movie.
Well, I read an interview with her talking about it, because the movie debuted at South by Southwest a while ago. This is like, it's just now coming out.
March.
Yeah. She did an interview and she said she knew who Simon Barrett was. She knew the screenwriter, but she read the script. And to your point, they pretty much had already offered her the role, but she read the script and she said the reason she accepted it was it scared her, because she had never seen anything like this. She was asked to act without dialogue, and she had never done that before. And so she said the reason that she was attracted to the role is because when she saw it, she's like, fuck, I don't know if I can do this. And that challenged her to do it because she was scared of it. And so, you know, brilliant, because yeah, you're right. Like, yeah, there's part of you where you're like, please God, do it, Samara Weaving, please, for the love of God, do this movie. This is how we're gonna get it made. But the fact that she saw it and saw herself in it and said, this scares me, I don't know if I can do this. Fuck yes, I want to do it. That's why you do it. And so, yeah, so I think that's also there. And again, I think the other person I want to give credit for, which is a weird one, I didn't look up the name, and I should have looked up the name, because sometimes these movies have a lot of people involved, so I don't like to single somebody out. But I also want to say that my other face huggable is the set design.
Yeah.
This is not a big movie. Like, this is not a movie that takes place over a sprawling urban, you know, landscape. It takes place in the woods. And what are we talking about here? We're talking about like 4 or 5 locations, really. The woods,
the woods being one.
The encampment where the zealots live, the religious zealots live, and they have like a little like rundown looking church that's in the background of their little encampment. And then a road where Samara Weaving runs into a guy with a truck at one point, and then an underground tunnel that's underneath the religious zealot town. That's really all you're dealing with, but it all looked really good, really authentic. They really did a good job of building this place to look lived in and authentic, and the woods look good. So I know it sounds like a weird little thing, but I thought the set design was great.
I especially love the church. Like, I just love the touches, because again, this is something like, you don't know what religion they're worshiping. You know, like you think it might maybe be some offshoot of a Christian religion, like way deep into the future, that has nothing to do with any traditional sense now. But all those designs in the church and the things that they would hang in the church and the decorations and all the stuff, and then the symbolism but it looked like the wood looked old and oily and beaten down. Like nothing looked cheap. I didn't feel like I was on a set. You're right. The production design was pretty top
Yeah,
shelf.
yeah, absolutely. Lots to like. Now, on the flip side of that, Patrick, there is what we like to call It's Giving Part 5. And I always like you to explain this because this was your creation, which was a brilliant creation. Credit to my brilliant co-host partner, Patrick Guerra, for this one. It's Giving Part 5.
Yes, if you're not familiar with this category that comes up time to time, part fives of all of our favorite franchises, they tend to get a little weird. They tend to do stuff that's a little funky. We're talking about like a Dream Child. We're talking about Friday the 13th. Oh God, what's the,
Is it A New Beginning? Isn't
a
that
new
just Part 5?
beginning, like, Hellraiser 5 is not exactly everyone's favorite. I know somebody's going to go, wait a minute, that's my favorite. Point is, part fives tend to have issues. So these are our issues with the movie. These are the Giving Part 5. One is now, for a movie with no dialogue, you got to set up the rules somehow. You got to understand how the world works. And basically, what we understand pretty quickly is that these people want Azrael back in their clutches, and the reason they want her back is she is their sacrifice. She's run away. She's run away with what seems to be her boyfriend. They track her down, they catch her, they tie her to a chair in the middle of the woods, and they slice open her leg. And the blood starts to drip, and then very shortly the wind starts to howl. Beautiful like setup of the environment. You start to understand something's going. The wind is howling, and then all of a sudden the groaning and the dragging of the feet in the dry leaves and all, and you're like, what is going on? And then that hideous burnt man comes through and basically is like, cool, blood, let me eat. She fights her way out of that and she keeps going. Okay, so what we have been told and explained very clearly here is that when they draw this blood, it will bring the zombies. And sure enough, she draws more blood because she's fighting back. She kills a couple people, she draws blood, and the zombies go to them, just like a shark would go to blood in the water. You get it. It's not hard to understand. Well, this scenario happens about 3 or 4 times in the movie, and about from the second time on, Samara Weaving is cut, battered, bruised, bleeding, bloody, scarred, other people's blood on her. She is a bloody mess, and for some reason that never attracts the zombies again. Like, the zombies turn into regular, just like, oh, I bumped into you type zombies. If she's covered in blood, she should be a magnet for them. It should be like, during ant season, if you drop one Cheerio on the ground, they're going to fucking go for it. You'll have 1,000 ants by the morning trying to devour that thing. For some reason, that just never comes back around. Like it kind of comes back around, but the rules are very inconsistent. So that's one problem I have. Oh, go ahead, please.
No. I was just going to say, the reason why it's so frustrating, though, is that it's that Samara Weaving's character, Azrael, gets like an exception. She gets a pass because the zombies, the burnt men are still going after blood of other people, that's the frustrating part, because suddenly she's just not drawing them in, but then another person gets cut and the zombies swoop in on them like they're fucking Thanksgiving dinner. So it's weird because at the beginning, we're made to understand blood attracts them. They smell blood and they fucking come running. They are just attracted to blood. But as you mentioned, it's like halfway through the movie, Samara Weaving is just covered in blood. But then another character gets bloody and they fucking bum rush them. And you're like, hold on now. Shouldn't you be also bum rushing Samara Weaving right now? Yeah, you're absolutely right. Like, it was just a weird switch, like midway through the movie, where her blood didn't seem to matter as much as the guy standing next to her who was bloody.
Yeah, the guy next to her scrapes his knee, and all of a sudden he's getting fucking ravaged. And you're like, well, wait a minute. She's got a head wound. She's got a bleeding head wound. Why isn't she getting ravaged? So that was weird. Now, there's a big one, but I'm gonna throw one right in the middle of my Giving Part 5. The other thing was I felt like at some point the scenario got repetitive. Now, I just explained to you the scenario, right? They're trying to get her, she fights and she gets away. That happens like 3 or 4 times. By the third or fourth time, it's feeling repetitive, and you know she's going to get out. Like, you're like, well, we're only an hour into this movie, so I know she's getting out of this situation, even though they attempt as best they can to raise the stakes and change the ground. You know, I'm seeing the craft, I'm seeing what they're trying to do, but ultimately, I think because it's a no dialogue movie, they were like, well, basically, we just need to keep putting her in this situation until she gets out of it, until she fully gets out of the movie. So it does get a little bit repetitive, in my opinion, and it makes a movie that is not very long feel a little longer than it should. But the big one, Damon, for me anyway, is it takes a while to really understand what's at stake in this movie, because you are trying to orient yourself, you are trying to understand what's happening in the world of Azrael, and it for a while I'm just like, I don't know what she's after exactly. It really takes some time for her going back to the encampment and going to the church and trying to meet a few more people before you start to understand. I think she's after somebody. Nobody's there to tell me. Remember that. And I'm trying to pick it up and I'm trying to understand it. And then, Damon, near the end of the movie, it almost feels like it reverses course. And this is where you and I got into a dialogue about this, about what we interpret the movie what we interpret is happening in the movie.
So in my version of what I saw in the movie, the way I took away from it was that Samara Weaving Azrael was a member of this religious zealot cult at one point, because they all have like a scarring on their throat to where they can't talk anymore. So like that's how they've been marked. They're all marked by this scarring on their throats. Her and her boyfriend were members, and they at some point said, we're out, and they escaped. The problem is, like most cults, you don't just get to walk away. So they decided they're going to sacrifice them. And Samara Weaving's character, Azrael's a little more important than her boyfriend, so they kind of use him as bait to get her back at one point. And you're right, by the way, not to belabor the point, but you're right. It does kind of repeat itself a little bit too much. It's an 85-minute movie, so it's not like exceedingly long. But yeah, you're right. Like, I think one less time of her captured and getting away would have worked. Anyways, so she finally her boyfriend gets murdered. Her boyfriend gets trapped, and he gets ripped apart by the burnt zombies. She goes back in the encampment at that point. She's just looking for revenge. She's just looking to like pay back these fuckers for killing her boyfriend and not letting them go. And so she goes in and she sneaks into the church. And inside the church, there's a woman wearing like a white gown, and you can tell she's the leader of this community. She's a younger woman, but she definitely has the power, because an older lady who seemed to be in charge earlier in the movie like basically bows down to her, and through head nods, I guess, basically, they communicate that they let Azrael get away, and the leader woman just smacks the shit out of her because she's just like, you failed me. So Azrael is like, you know what? I don't care if I live or die, but this lady is going to fucking get it. She's done. I'm going to go in this church and I'm going to fucking gut her. She's done. She goes in the church, and the lady turns around and she's pregnant. Now, the way I interpreted it was, in that moment, the lady turns to Samara Weaving and she points at her belly. And for a split second, Samara Weaving, Azrael, looks down and she's like, oh shit, she's pregnant. And in that brief moment of distraction, the lady in the white dress thwacks her with a stick or a bat or something, knocks Samara Weaving out, and they capture her again. And once again, we're back to the cycle of we're going to sacrifice Samara Weaving. You had a slightly different interpretation of that moment with the baby.
Yeah, to me, what I interpreted the movie as is that Azrael was trying to get back. I like what you're saying, and I think it makes the most sense. I think it's the path of least resistance, is that she was just wanted revenge because they killed her boyfriend. I like now that you say it that way, to me, I go, that's probably what they meant. What I was trying to gather, and what I seemed to gather, was like that she was going back there to destroy it all, specifically to destroy what they were up to in that church, because she seemed to be focused on the church for some reason. She seemed to be very focused on it. So I thought, like, oh, there's something in the church that she needs to end. And I was trying to like tie it to, again, they're not telling me anything, so I'm trying to fill in the blanks. That she was like, something about ending this church will end the suffering. And that's where I was kind of running with it. So when I saw her confronted, I think his name is Muriel. I think it was the name of the pregnant woman. Is it Muriel? Miriam. So when she confronts Miriam, I I looked at it as she directly chose to point her knife at the belly of of Miriam, saying like, I need to kill what's inside there. So I took that, because I'm not getting any information from them. I took that as like, I'm here to kill that baby. And so what happens, and that leads into what happens at the end of the movie, which is she there's a big showdown. She burns half the place down, and she finally gets back into that church. She has the fight with Miriam. Miriam is succumbing to her injuries, but is also at the same time giving birth. And she gives birth, and you hear the wails of that baby, and you go, that don't sound like any old baby. That sounds like some other kind of baby, some other kind of demon baby. And you learn from a couple of little events that the blood of that baby actually repels the zombies. And so she chooses in the end to take the baby to keep her safe from the zombies, who are, by the way, descending on this compound because there's blood spilled everywhere and they love them. So I looked at that like, damn, wasn't she here to kill this baby and now she loves this baby? It was weird to me. That's how I interpreted it. But I see now more your way, where it's like, yeah, she was here after her boyfriend. Like, that's what she was there to get revenge on her boyfriend, and she was probably there to kill Miriam because Miriam's the one telling everyone, hey, we need to sacrifice Azrael. She's like, well, let me just end Miriam so I can end my madness and end all the hell that I've been going through. So if I end Miriam, maybe I end all of this. I like your interpretation of it all better. I think it's cleaner and simpler.
Yeah, so my interpretation, just a quick, dirty version of it, is that when we meet Azrael and her boyfriend in the woods, we have no idea how long they've been missing, but it seems like they've been out there for a while. And when she gets back in that church looking for revenge, she finds Miriam, doesn't know that Miriam's pregnant. Miriam turns around and points at her belly, and in that moment, just that moment of hesitation of, oh shit, she's pregnant, like I would hope any normal person would have when they see a pregnant lady, you would just immediately cut them down. She hesitates, and Miriam knocks her out, and on her way down, she has a knife in her hand. On her way down, Azrael ends up scratching Miriam's belly, and she gets a little bit of blood on her hands. And the way they sacrifice her this time is they chuck her into a grave, into a casket. They drop a casket. They drop a lid on the casket. They bury her. She's able to break through and escape. She's like, hold on, this was like, I'm out of the casket on the other end. What's going on here? You realize they dump her into a tunnel that leads to where those burnt creatures are. She runs into the burnt creature. It chases her back into the casket. She's like, well, I'm done for. The thing crawls on top of her, which, by the way, the other design, I said it kind of looks like Quinn from Blade. It also a little bit looks like, kind of like a burnt version of the creatures from The Descent. They're bald.
Yeah.
They have kind of like weird, like distorted faces. It's kind of cool. The thing gets right in her face, and it's like, like, ah, in her face, and she's like, mawing back at it because she can't make noise. And it just sniffs her, and then it just crawls away. And she realizes it's because the blood on her hands, which was Miriam's blood. So when she finally escapes, she gets out of there, she goes back into the church, she sets the whole town on fire, and when she confronts Miriam this time, Miriam ends up attacking her, they get into a big battle, but she realizes something about this baby is keeping the creatures away. And so she gives birth, and when she goes and picks up the baby, it's got like 9 eyes, and it looks like some sort of
goat,
creature.
like a goat baby type thing.
Yeah, it's a demon. It's Baphomet. It's a creature. And you realize that this was all part of that weird cult. And the way I took it, by the way, this is the way I interpret it. This was all part of the weird cult. They were keeping the creatures at bay by giving birth to their demon god or their demon creature, whatever it is. And so that's how they never just broke into the compound to feed on them, because they knew that they were going to give birth to their god or whatever. And so when she comes out with the baby in its swaddling clothes, the creatures are all like backing off and almost bowing down, because you realize that's what they were after. This is their worship. This is their god. This is their creature. And so she uses that to control the creatures. And that's really how the movie ends. So that was my interpretation. She wasn't trying to kill the baby. She was trying to kill Miriam. And then she found out she was pregnant. She's like, oh shit, I can't kill a pregnant lady. distracts her long enough to get taken down, and then she realizes, hey, these creatures are like, I don't think they're scared of the blood. It's almost like, actually, the way I took it, Patrick, it was like Alien 3.
Yeah.
When the creature comes right in Sigourney Weaver's face and it puts out the second mouth, but it doesn't bite her. She's like, ready to die, and it doesn't kill her, and it just runs away. And that's when she realizes, I gotta have the fucking the queen alien in my body, because why else would that thing not kill me? Same kind of thing here. Like, they know that's their god, or their antichrist, whatever version of that it is the way I took it.
Yeah, and then it does raise another question for me where I go, well, I guess that means that they were in the right the whole time. Because at one point I was like, I think Azrael's the bad guy now. Because now all I'm seeing is her. She burned up an old woman, and like a frail, sickly old woman in a tent. She like burns her to the ground because that was like the general's mom or whatever. At least that's what I interpreted. And so I looked at it and I go, she's fighting all this, and yes, they did want to kill her. So I understand, Azrael, your ire for these people, but it turns out they were right. They were waiting for the birth of their savior.
Yeah, there's a couple things. The ending, when I said 90% of it made total sense, 10% didn't. The 10% that was kind of confusing was just that ending sequence, because it was, originally, there's also a scene, so before they did a flashback of her scratching down the belly and realizing that was the blood that kept them away, just a few scenes earlier, she ends up actually killing one of the creatures. She gets drawn into a tree with one of the burnt creatures, and she fights it off, and she ends up wrapping a rope that was originally around her neck, around her foot, wrapping around its neck, and she jumps off, and the thing jumps off, and it basically kills itself, snaps its neck, and hangs there. And when the other creature saw her in the casket and it sniffed her and walked away, I thought it must have smelled like the pheromones of the other creature on her. And so it's like, oh, she's one of us. That's what I thought at first. Then I realized she had the blood from Miriam and it was the baby. So there are some moments where you're kind of like, huh, is that what it is? Is that it? So it took me a little time and kind of took us discussing it to I think I've come to a resolution of what I think happened, but it's still only what I think happened. I don't know, and I've not seen an interview with Simon Barrett where he full on explained it. So, yeah, as I said, 90% totally made sense. The last 10% was kind of like, maybe this is what it is. I think this is what it is, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe we're both wrong. Who knows?
Yeah, if you're one of these people who listens to our spoilers and then sees a movie anyway, like, just go and pay real close attention to all the steps, because it's like, I was definitely looking around like, what's happening? What's this? What's that? I was trying to like understand the world. I know that there's key steps in there, because I saw the step. I saw her scratch Miriam's belly, and I was like, oh, clearly the blood from Miriam's belly is protecting her from from the burnt man. Like, I saw that. You just might have missed that. Your eyes might have been in another direction when you saw that, or you might have been processing some other part of the movie when that part happened and you didn't quite pick up on it. But with a no dialogue movie, that's what's going to happen. It's like every bit of the frame counts. This is not a movie you go take a pee break. You're gonna miss a whole big chunk and be very lost. So you got to watch the whole experience as it lays out.
Yeah, and to their credit, so when the thing comes in there originally in the casket, when I thought it was the pheromones of the other creature, right after that they do a flashback and they show her scratching the belly. So they kind of tell you. They tell you that's what it is.
I didn't need the flashback, but I was like, yeah, they're really trying to emphasize. They're really trying to emphasize it.
Yeah, and that's where I picked up on. I was like, oh, okay, it's the blood from the baby. But in that moment, I had kind of forgotten about that. So I'm glad they did replay it for Jackass Damon. I didn't see it at the moment. So, but yeah, again, a lot of it is left up to interpretation. So maybe I'm right, but I don't know. Like, we've kind of pieced together what we think happened, but we're still not 100% sure. And
yeah, you tell us what you think happened.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. But yeah, so, but again, as you said, trying to figure out what's at stake and really the ending, you're kind of like, I think I know what's happened, but But again, I don't even know if that's really the larger point. The larger point is this dystopian world. There's a cult and creatures, and Samara Weaving fucks them all up. There's your plot. So live with that. Patrick, let's move on to our next category, and that is best scare. Now, to their credit, there are some pretty harrowing sequences in this film, both creature related and not creature related. What was your best scare in Azrael?
I titled this my best scare. Them fuckers are fast, because they established the burnt men as slow, lumbering, foot dragging zombies, like real slow, like the kind that you could just walk around them, but you don't want them to get close to you. They're clearly very bloodthirsty. So like you're kind of lulled into the sense of like, oh, they're slow. You can kind of hear them coming. You can kind of hear them groaning and all that stuff. Well, at one point she's in like, I want to say like an abandoned like building or something like that where there's a few around and one sees her and it just fucking bolts for her. And you're like, oh shit. Like it really like, it got me off guard. It was a great misdirection, actually. Like the way they set the monsters up and then the way they pay them off. It's like, no, they can be really fast, actually, where you have to run for your fucking life.
Yeah, the first couple of times you see them, they're kind of like the slow, like almost like mummy-like zombies where they're just kind of like lumbering around the scene. And then like a minute later, they're just like sprinting after people. You're like, oh shit! Like they go from George Romero zombies to Zack Snyder zombies in a hurry. So, yeah, it happens. So my best scare was not really creature related. So there's a moment which they don't explain it, and I'm not really sure how it tied into the movie. But there's a moment where Samara Weaving is able to get away, and she actually runs onto a road, and a guy in a truck stops and picks her up. And he's talking. Now, he's not speaking English, so we still have no fucking idea what he's saying. And there's no subtitles, so we still don't know what he's saying. But he's speaking to her, so there is a person in this world who speaks. And he turns on some music, and she's like freaking out because she's hearing music maybe for the first time in her life, and it's actually kind of like it's almost, I know it sounds weird to say this, it's almost like the moment in The Village. Sorry, I'm spoiling an M. Night Shyamalan movie 30 years later. It's like the moment in The Village when you realize they're not actually living in the 1800s or whatever, it's actually living in modern times. You're like, huh, there's a truck and this guy's got music, he's playing the fucking, I can't remember what, it's a song that was also in Boogie Nights, I can't remember what song it is, but it's a song, I'm like, what the fuck, it's like disco music or whatever, what the fuck? And they're driving, and he's like, she's panicked, but she's like, she feels like she's safe now. She's with a guy in his truck, and they're driving along. And then, very much like No Country for Old Men, a fucking sniper bullet comes ripping through that truck's window and just fucking kills the guy. And you realize it's one of those the cult sect members who's kind of like been waiting for her on the road, and he shoots the guy in the fucking head. And you remember the scene in No Country for Old Men where Josh Brolin's character gets in the truck, he's trying to get away, and then fucking Anton Chigurh shoots the guy through the throat who's trying to drive the truck. He's like, oh shit! Very much like that. The bullet I did not see that coming in that moment. I knew something was going to happen, but I thought the creatures were going to come, not the fucking guy on the road with a sniper bullet taking out the truck driver.
Yeah. This movie's got a lot of good jump scares too, because it's kind of like, I mean, it's definitely horror, but it's got like little thriller elements like that, where it's just like you are meant to be caught by surprise.
Also, let me give credit where credit's due. One of the coolest scenes in the movie. This is not going to go into the next category of best gore, but there was a really cool sequence. So after that truck accident, Samara Weaving's Azrael gets into a fight with the soldier from her compound. And she ends up hitting him with the truck. She ends up like slamming the truck into him, and he goes fucking flying. You're like, well, that guy's dead. He's not dead. He comes back and he's got a rifle, like an actual like M16 type rifle. And she fights him. He's still busted up, though. His legs all fucked up. So it's more of a fair fight, like guy against girl. And they're fighting and struggling, and she manages to get the gun, but then he attacks her again. And she has a really cool move where he's got her in a chokehold, like a rear naked choke. And she grabs the gun, kind of points it backwards and points it up at him. So it's like kind of at her head, but also like at his head. And she turns it just enough and pulls the trigger and blows his fucking head off. And it's a really cool sequence because it's a rifle, so she can't like point it at him. So she's got like backwards at him, and she just like pulls the trigger and it fucking blows his head off. I thought it was a really cool kill sequence.
Oh yeah. This movie's got a lot of kick-ass moments for Samara Weaving.
Yeah. So now, Patrick, let's talk about best gore, because there is a lot of gore in this movie.
There is, and kind of earlier on in the movie when we see what these burnt men are up to. One guy gets attacked, and you're like, oh, okay, they're kind of biting him, they're kind of drinking his blood a little bit. I thought too, I was like, oh, I guess they kind of suck your blood or something like that. Yeah, they kind of start by sucking your blood, but then they just start fucking tearing into this guy's neck and making it look like fucking Thanksgiving turkey. They are ripping ripping the fucking neck out of this guy in very close detail, very super gory, very super bloody. They don't cut away. They really let you get in on it. It's kind of nasty.
So I'm gonna give my award to one, but I want to give an honorable mention if that's okay. There's a moment in the woods where Samara Weaving gets captured again. The like 9 times she gets captured in this movie, and she ends up calling on the creatures. Like she gets away, and the creatures come and attack her boyfriend. They kill him, but they also kill one of the soldier guys from her compound. And they kill this fucker, and they rip his head off, and they decapitate him. At one point, the creature holds his head up, and he's like drinking from the guy's head, from the decapitated head. I thought that was pretty cool. But the one that got me, that I was like, holy shit, that was awesome. So after Azrael sets fire to the compound, and most of the people in the compound have been killed, dead, whatever, they're all fucked up, burnt, whatever. There's another one of the soldier guys, one of the other main soldier guys that captures her early in the film. And he's got a gun. She killed his wife or girlfriend. And so now he's on a mission to find Azrael. And he's hunting through the compound with the gun. And he realizes that she's probably out of bullets. And so he's like hunting her with his gun. He's like looking around every corner, shooting, trying to get there. And then he sees her out of nowhere. She comes running at him, and he's out of bullets. And he's like, oh, shit. And she just runs and fucking slices him with a machete, and his head goes flying off, and the arterial spray just goes... And I thought it was very like Kill Bill. Like, really, it looked like a Kill Bill scene. But I just thought it was awesome. She just cut his head off, and I was like, oh, shit. She cut his head off, and the arterial spray was great. So that was my favorite just because I didn't really see it coming. I thought she was going to kill him, but I knew she was going to chop his head off. And the arterial spray was just, it very much reminded me of Kill Bill.
Oh yeah. A lot of like brutal, like hand-to-hand violence in this movie you don't solely rely on the zombie stuff.
Yeah. Next category, Patrick, remake, sequel, or leave it alone. This is pretty self-explanatory, but I'll explain it anyways. This is the category where we take whatever movie we are reviewing and we say, should you remake it? Should you sequelize it? Or should you just leave it alone? So when it comes to Azrael, Patrick, remake, sequel, or leave it alone?
This really feels like a leave it alone. I mean, I don't see like a need for other things, but like you could tease me the idea of a sequel. It's like, okay, well now she's got little baby Baphomet with her, and so she's going to be safe from the unburnt, or from the burnt, excuse me. But is she going to be safe from other types of people? You almost kind of have a Walking Dead situation where it's like you're probably going to run into other cults, other compounds, other people, and you are the one who has the very secret weapon, the thing that can keep you safe from these things. You have it, so you become most wanted, right? Because they want that thing. I want that because my people are suffering and dying at the hands of these burnt men. So we need to take it from you. I think you could go down that route.
If you do it right, I think sequel is the correct answer because this is a world that we could explore so much more. And I'm not talking about like how it happened or how we got here. I don't need to know any of that.
Yeah.
But again, what we see in this movie is one little cult that's living in the middle of the woods, intense and, very primitive living. And we know there's a guy in a truck who has music, so we're in like somewhat modern time. We don't know when this is supposed to be, but we know it's got music from fucking Boogie Nights in it. So I'd be just curious to see like what else is out there. Like you could, we know these burnt creatures are out there. We know they're either protecting or scared of this weird goat baby. So, like, I could see a world where you could do a sequel and just explore more of this dystopian universe. Is there another sect out there? Is this one little chapter of the cult? Is there a much bigger version of this cult somewhere else? Are there other cults? Where are these burnt men? You're like, what the fuck are they? Is there like a platoon of them somewhere? So I wouldn't mind it. I mean, if you can come up with a creative idea and keep the format the same with the no dialogue except for one random guy comes along and I think he was speaking Spanish. I'm not sure.
I don't think so. Yeah,
he was speaking some language, but definitely didn't understand it. But I think you could do a sequel. I think there's a version here you could do a sequel.
Yeah, I think it's out there. I mean, I'm not clamoring for it. It's kind of like, oh, I saw the trick. I don't necessarily need to see it again. But I said that about a Quiet Place, and A Quiet Place Day One might be one of my favorite entries in the entire series. So there you go.
Yeah, you never know. Next category, Patrick. Can we survive this horror film? This is the category where you and I plug ourselves into whatever horror film we are watching and we say, can we survive this horror film? Now, Patrick, I'm going to go first and say this. If you're putting me in the religious cult where they cut my vocal cords, so be it. I got you. We can't shut the fuck up. So there's no world where we would be in a no dialogue movie because we can't stop talking. So I'm going to say no, I don't survive because I'm going to be like yammering the entire time. And either the cult's going to kill me or the fucking burnt men are going to kill me because I can't shut the fuck up.
I'm going to tell you, I do survive, and I'll tell you why. Because we know that there are people in this world who talk and exist because we met the guy in the truck. The weird thing is, the guy in the truck seemed very nonplussed. Whatever was going on in his life, it seemed like it was worlds away from it. Like, it seemed like he didn't even know what the fuck burnt men were. Like, he was that cavalier. He was that casual. So I'm like, well, if I can talk, and this guy's out there driving his pickup truck in the middle of the night, picking up Samara Weaving and having a blast, bumping disco, then there is a world where I can exist. And you know me, and I know you. We're not going to be the first guys to sign up for the latest religious cult. I'm going to be like fucking 20 fucking, clicks away from whatever's going on with these people. I'm not into their shit, so I might actually have a chance. And I don't want to say I'm antisocial because I'm not. But in the apocalypse, I would be very choosy with who I hung out with. So I think I might be all right.
Yeah, I know I wouldn't make it in the religious cult. They'd kill me in about 8 seconds flat.
Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah, I would probably get sacrificed pretty quick. Or I would start doing the sacrificing. I'd be like, all right, you know what? All you fucks are done because you're all fucked up.
Yeah, so, but I'm being honest. I can't shut the fuck up, so I'd probably die. They'd be like, dude, we're just going to kill you to shut you up. Jesus Christ. Patrick, our final category is always, is it scary? So when it comes to Azrael, is this movie actually scary?
I think Azrael's actually pretty scary. I think the zombie stuff and the harrowing kind of battle between Azrael and this cult, it's harrowing. It's clinchy. I would give it a pucker factor of like 6.5, 7. Like, it's up there. And I think the zombies are well done. I think they're well done and original. There's plenty of gore and blood and guts in this movie, so it has all those elements, and it got me a couple. Like when those zombies start running, they got me for a minute. So I can't say that this is not scary. I think it is.
I think it's a scary movie. It's what went wrong. Like a show that I used to love, The Walking Dead, and I love the comic book a lot, is that it just got away from what made the show great. But in there were episodes and there were seasons where it was harrowing when they were getting, attacked by the zombies and there was hordes of zombies and, it was a very, very scary situation. I thought that show did it really well. And another show that I think is even better, and we reviewed season 1, and there's just a new trailer for season 2 just dropped, was The Last of Us, where you had a human element. There was definitely a very scary human element, but then you also had these, the cordyceps creatures, the fungal creatures. So you had kind of like that combination of like the human factor coming after you, and you also had these creatures coming after you. And that's kind of what Azrael is. You have the human weird cult people, but then you also have these burnt men. And so it's a good combination, a good balancing act of scary, because you are terrified of these burnt men, but you also have to be equally scared of the fucking cult people because they want to kill you too. So I do think it's scary, and I do think there were some really effective jump scares. And as you mentioned, you're right, one less time capturing Samara Weaving, get it down to like, it's 85 minutes, get down to 70 minutes. And I think it's a pretty tight, pretty well-made film, even if I'm still like not totally sure what happens at the ending. But overall, I thought it was a pretty solid movie, pretty good scares, pretty solid story, and above all, everything else that I'll say, it is original. I've not seen this kind of film done this way before. I've seen plenty of dystopian horrors. I've seen plenty of cult films. This is something different that I've not seen before when you don't have the dialogue and you have to kind of figure it out as you go. And it's actually a coherent story, which is, I would imagine, would be a struggle for a lot of filmmakers to get that right. It is that. It is coherent. It's actually pretty easy to follow, minus a little bit of the ending. So yeah, it's scary, and I liked it. I didn't love it. It's not a movie that I'm going to revisit every year, but I enjoyed it.
It was better than serviceable, if that makes any sense. It was just like, oh, this is fine. It's like, no, it's better than fine. It didn't knock my socks off, but I liked it. It was a good time. And you're very right. It's a really original idea in a familiar space, and I think that's something to crow about. It's like, hey, check this out. You haven't seen a zombie apocalypse quite like this one.
Absolutely. All right, folks, that is our episode for this week. We are drawing very close to the month of October, where we are going to have a huge month of horror. 2 massive films coming out in October, of course, Terrifier 3 and Smile 2. Smile was your favorite horror film a couple of years ago. Terrifier 2 was my second favorite horror film a couple of years ago. Big October. October's Halloween month. It is the month of horror, so we will have a lot going on in October, so make sure you stay tuned for that. Always check us out on all of your favorite podcast platforms, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and of course over on our website, rewindofthelivingdead.com. And you can also find us on YouTube. Just search Rewind of the Living Dead. And please, I'm sorry I have to beg, please subscribe to us over there. It means a lot to us, helps our videos pop up better on the algorithm, on search engines, things like that. So even if you don't watch us on YouTube, if you have a YouTube or you have access to YouTube, at least subscribe. And you can also watch us there if you want. You can actually see our reactions. I'd like at the beginning of the episode when Patrick sat there and didn't say anything. You'd actually see him not saying anything. Also, if you got questions, comments, movies you'd like us to review, if you actually saw Azrael and you have a different interpretation, I'd love to hear what your interpretation of this movie is, the ending particularly. You can send us emails at rotlivingdead@gmail.com. That's rotlivingdead@gmail.com. Or you can find us on social media. We are on Twitter, we are on Facebook, and we are on Instagram. Once again, just search Rewind of the Living Dead, and you will find us over there. And you can also find us on our own personal social media channels. I am at Damon Martin, and you are?
At Director Patrick.
And as always, we appreciate everyone tuning in. We will be back next week as we kick off October on Rewind of the Living Dead. Thanks for tuning in, and we will see you then.